So it's now time to start off this seminar arranged by the Christian Democrats in Sweden about the ethnical and religious persecution that is now taking place in the Middle East, in Syria and in Iraq. My name is Sara Skyttedal, and I will moderate this discussion with this distinguished panel that we have the honor to have here today. And we did have a last-minute cancellation from Ivar Arpi, that is editor of the magazine Neo, who had to visit the emergency on a late notice, unfortunately. But in our panel we have Jacob Rudolfsson, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the Swedish Evangelical Alliance. We also have Sofia Damm, who is the Member of Parliament and also the Foreign Policy Spokesperson of the Christian Democratic Party. But first and foremost, I would like to give the attention to our guest from Iraq, from Erbil, Ms. Savina Dawood, who is a young Syrian activist from Erbil that represents, for instance, the Khalda Syrian Youth and Student Union and also the organization of Demand for Action in Iraq. Thank you so much for being here, and I will now give the floor to you to give us an insight on how life is on the ground in the region that is now haunted by radical Islamists and are forcing millions to flee for their lives. Thank you and welcome.
Hello, everyone. Everyone can hear me well? Okay. Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction and for having me here. Really appreciate it. To give me the chance to represent our voice of Assyrians, Christians, minorities of Iraq, that's mostly and most of the time not heard and not delivered. I will get access to the computer here so I can have my presentation on. Here. It should be this one. Yeah. We can have it full-sized. Yes. Okay, perfect. So, Assyrians, the indigenous people of Iraq, are being constantly targeted and persecuted. And unfortunately, we have been receiving no answers and no support from anyone who is capable of. It's been thousands of years and decades that we have been facing genocides and ethnic cleansing, that no nationalities around us, no powerful nations were able to stand by us and to support us. We built the cradle of civilizations, but today we are witnessing it becoming the shame and the grave of civilizations, the same place. Exactly 100 years ago from today, 750,000 Assyrians were massacred. Over 1 million Armenians were massacred. Over 800,000 Greeks were massacred for sharing the belief of Christianity. And nothing was done. Even our own countries, where I live in and have the citizenship of it, does not recognize my genocide. And thus, every now and then, because we have nobody to support us, we have nobody to stand for us, we keep being persecuted again and again. In June 2014, the second largest city in Iraq, it was controlled by ISIS in less than 24 hours. Of course, the Iraqi army evacuated, could not protect the place, and once they took over, they gave options to our people there. They told the Assyrian Christians there, you either convert to Islam or you pay jizya with unlimited amount, or you leave without taking anything with you, or you simply die. And of course, our people had to flee to other cities like Erbil, in Nuhadra, Duhok, Suleymaniya, where they are safer. And they became homeless. The indigenous people of the country becoming homeless in 2014. Later on, it continued to other minorities, like the Yazidis in Shingal and in Kobani. They faced the same thing. They were killed as well. Almost 3,000 women were taken. 3,000 women from the Yazidis and the Christians in Shingal and Kobani. And until today, we have no word of them. And we all know what's going to be happening to them, or what is happening to them, and what will be their destiny. In August, the Nineveh Plains, the capital of Assyrians, the history and heritage of our people, it was attacked by ISIS, and unfortunately, the Peshmerga forces could not protect the land. They evacuated, and our people as well were asked to evacuate. More than 200,000 people in August, they became homeless. They were living in tents in 2014, the indigenous people. In public gardens, in churches, in streets, our women, our children, our fathers, our elders, our special needs people, they were sleeping on the streets. In incompleted construction buildings. This is one of the victims who is right now with ISIS. She's only 4 years old, Christina. She was taken from her mother, and she was told, she belongs to us, she's ours. And until today, we have no word of her. And this is only one story. We have hundreds of other stories. There is this father who was taken again by ISIS so that his wife and his 2 children could survive. At all the checkpoints, they were standing there, they took everything from them, they took hostages. There were 40 people, Assyrian Christians, taken hostages for longer than 2 weeks. They took everything from them. They took females, they took our kids, and they let go of the rest. Despite of the harsh conditions that our people who are internally displaced are living, who are in need of the basic things in life, of shelter, comfortable shelter in this cold winter, warm water, clean water, health care, we also are facing educational crisis. Thousands of students have no access to education. In 2014, let me remind you again. Well, now it's 2015. We have over 8,000 students who are not going to school today. This is one of the biggest threats to our nation. We're going to be having an educational gap, a huge educational gap in our nation. And at the same time, they are still living in the trauma. Because most of them, they walked the distance from Nineveh Plain to Erbil into a safe place because their cars were also taken from them. I'm talking about distance of at least 2 hours with a car. And in August, it was the hottest weather. Many kids, they couldn't even survive because of the health condition after they were back to Erbil. Right now, we are trying our best to take our people out of the tents, because that's not how a person, or I would say someone who belongs to the greatest civilizations, someone who owns the land, someone who is the indigenous people of that land, should be living in 2015. We're trying our best to take them out of the tents and to put them in caravans or inside churches or inside public organizations that we have. This attack seems to be one of the biggest threats. In 2003, our population in Iraq was 1.6 million, and today it's less than 500,000. We can see the dramatic decrease in our population in homeland. They're trying to take us out from our own lands, from our own homes. Our people all over the world, they have been trying since June very hard, working non-stop, so we can bring together the awareness to the world to realize, and so we can reach to the people who have the capability and the authority to support us and help us in any way possible. And we did manage to get a lot of humanitarian aid from many places, and we really appreciate it, because we were able to take our kids out of the streets. We were able to let our kids sleep without being hungry. We were able to take some of our sick people to the doctor. We could save some lives. However, that is not the solution, and it's not enough. The solution for the indigenous people and the minorities like Yazidis and others in Iraq is not only humanitarian aid. We need safe haven to be internationally protected in the region where our people are living and the Yazidis are living, so we can administrate the region ourselves. We need to stand up again. We need to become an independent nation so we can depend on ourselves, not on anyone else. Because our people, they lost the trust and the faith in the local governments. They want to defend their lands themselves. We want our own security unit so we can protect our own selves. This would be the region of Nineveh Plains, where the majority of people are Assyrians and Yazidis and some other minorities. This region has been neglected because the majority of the residents there, they don't belong to the powerful nationalities in Iraq. That's why we need to have our own independency as a nation in the region and our own security. We already, as Assyrians in Iraq, established Nineveh Plain protection units, and we are trying to have it the centralized security unit for our people. And we have thousands of men, even women, are ready to be equipped, to be armed, to be trained, so that they can defend their lands and get their homes back. We have proven to the world as Assyrians that we can build the greatest of civilizations. And our evidence to that proof is laying now in the greatest of countries: Germany, France, United States, Britain. They're protecting this rich heritage of ours. Obviously, they care. How come the Assyrians, people who built this heritage that they're protecting so hard, they're not giving any care about them? We built these. You're protecting it in your museums. We appreciate that, because if it was in our countries, it would have been destroyed. But I think now it's the time that you care for the people who built this, for the civilization and the nationality that built this. Enough with the rich heritage care. I think our lives is richer than the heritage. We don't want to be isolated from other nationalities that are living in Iraq, because we have proven that we can live with them and we can survive with them, we can build with them and develop with them. We appreciate everyone, and we are people who always promote peace and who want the best for our country, for our people, and our lands. With our demands from everyone, if we have our own safe haven with other minorities, that we can become independent, and if we have our own security units that we can defend our own lands, then I think this will be the survival of the indigenous people of Iraq and of the greatest of civilizations that man ever witnessed. And I think the world really owes this for us, because until today, they're using the figures and the findings of a Syrian nation. Thank you so much for coming, and I'll be receiving your questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Savina. I'll now give the floor to Jacob Rudolfsson, who is, as I said before, the Deputy Secretary General of the Swedish Evangelical Alliance, and you're also active in the organization Open Doors that protects Christians that are being prosecuted all over the world and are also monitoring the situation now in this region. Thank you for coming here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you also, Savina, for sharing with us on this very important issue. It's heartbreaking images that you're showing us. And thank you also, the Christian Democratic Party, for organizing this event. As I said, I work for the Swedish Evangelical Alliance, but I'm also on the board of Open Doors Sweden. Open Doors International was founded in 1955 as a humanitarian and mission organization that helped to provide support for Christians behind the Iron Curtain. And now it's at work in all over the world and helping and supporting and bringing advocacy to persecuted Christians. 2014 marked a year of increasing violence and persecution of Christians. For example, in North Korea, where around 50,000 Christians are presently in prison camps due to the oppressive communist regime. And in sub-Saharan Africa, where Islamic extremism is increasing more and more, it's the area where the persecution against Christians are increasing the most. So this is not just something that's happening in a closed area. It's a systematic trend. And today we also witness the systematic persecution, and one can also describe it as an ethnic and religious cleansing of Christians and other minorities from their ancient homelands. Christians in Syria have declined from 1.75 million in early 2011 to perhaps barely 1.2 million in the summer of 2014. A decline of over 30% in 3 years. In Iraq, the decline has been even steeper. As we heard, before 2003, there were around 1.6 Christians in Iraq, now probably less than 500,000. There are also numbers that says less than 200,000. Many historical Christians communities have been forced to flee because, as we see, apart from Israel, Iraq, for example, is the country with most biblical activity. Abraham came from Iraq. Jonah preached in Nineveh in Iraq. Esther was a queen in what is today Iraq. In the 8th century, Christian mission initiatives was launched from Iraq under the Patriarch Timothy I, where they started churches in India, Mongolia, and China. So it's as we also heard, it's a rich heritage. Each year, Open Doors publish a report of the countries where Christians are the most persecuted, and it ranks the 50 worst countries where persecution of Christians for religious reasons is most severe. It also lists types of persecution and severity. It is then audited by an independent human rights organization to ensure credibility and authenticity. And this year, Syria and Iraq have been placed on numbers 3 and 4, respectively, on the World Watch list as the most dangerous places to be a Christian. One significant trend in the list is that under the influence of ISIS, radical sentiments have increased in the Middle East. There are ISIS cells either sleeping or active in several countries, including Jordan, Lebanon, the West Bank, and Gaza. It has raised fears among local groups of Christians and even among local non-Christians, who in some cases have begun to arm themselves. In Syria, areas that are controlled by the Islamic State or by other jihadists have been radicalized. Some normal Muslims have become more radicalized because they don't want to give the impression of being apostates to the Islamic State. It has a clear consequences for the situation of the Christians, as pressure against them has intensified. This applies to all Christians, but especially Christians also from a Muslim background. In December 2013, the Patriarch Louis Sacco of Iraq's Chaldean Catholic Church spoke at a conference in Rome on the persecution of Christians and religious liberty. The title of his speech was "What Happens to the Middle East if Christians Flee?" He said that Christians would continue to suffer the agony of violence and displacement. But, he insisted, the Middle East societies and Muslims themselves would also suffer. In Iraq, Christians have lived for 2,000 years and have made substantial economic, intellectual, and religious contributions to the common good. The very presence of Christian communities was stabilizing. Among other things, it ensured religious pluralism, which is a prerequisite for religious toleration and religious liberty, which is a foundation for democracy. And it is utterly necessary for the success of any highly religious society. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. You mentioned this World Watch list that you have ranking countries. And as you said, Iraq, for instance, has climbed on this list. I was wondering regarding other countries on this list. Are they moving down just because other countries are becoming worse, or do you see any examples of Christian minorities having the situation improved that could maybe function as an inspiration on how to find a more religious pluralistic society in this region as well, or is it just...
Well, even if that country in itself has its own problems and tensions, Israel is probably the most democratic state in the Middle East, the only democratic state, I would say. And even if Christians of other traditions fare differently, also experience tensions, it is far better than the neighboring countries. And what is required is the respect of pluralism, and not enforcing your religious view on others, forcing people to either convert to your religious ideology or religious belief or die. Yes.
Thank you. And I now leave the floor to Sofia Damm, who is the foreign policy spokesperson of the Christian Democrats, who might enlighten us on, from the political sphere here in Sweden, on how we could deal with this and be involved.
Thank you. Savina Dawood, I want to start off by thanking you for your brave commitment to raise awareness about what is actually going on in your region. Thanks for being here in the Swedish Parliament today, and thanks for your strong words during your presentation, and thanks for sharing your experiences and thoughts with all of us. Thanks, Jacob, for bringing numbers to those strong words. It is heartbreaking to hear. When the initiative A Demand for Action was launched, the founder, Nuri Kino, stated that the aim of the work was to make sure that no one could ever say, we didn't know. So for all of us being here today, for sure, there will be no one ever saying, we didn't know. So thank you. However, by demanding action, you are demanding more than just awareness. You want us to act. And you have every right in doing so, because each one of us needs to act. After every possible ability that we do have in our different fields. Savina is a spokesperson for those who cannot speak to us. Eva Arpi is a journalist who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but is one of the few Swedish opinion leaders who early on highlighted the situation on religious minorities in the Middle East, and who has posed the question, why such unproportionate media attention to other conflicts when our sisters and brothers are being killed only because of their belief? And Jacob got engaged in Open Doors to show the world concrete facts on the violation of human rights, on the persecution of Christians. And me as a politician in opposition, who must never let go on this issue, who constantly must collect information, help raising awareness, and put pressure on the government to act. But for each one of us here, there are actions to be taken, and I know that all of us here today are here because we never want to say, we did know, but we didn't do anything. Savina has given us some concrete examples on how we can act, and I would like to comment on some of the points that's been raised. Savina mentioned the refugee situation and the remarkable way in which the population in North Iraq has given protection to the threatened religious minority, not the least the Christians and Yazidi people, who after the fall of Mosul has been given protection. And every day there are new refugees coming to the region, coming to Erbil. The needs when it comes to shelter, housing, medical equipment, healthcare increases dramatically, and it's clear that we need to step up our efforts and commitments in terms of humanitarian aid. During the autumn, Sweden has stepped up its efforts and increased its humanitarian aid to Iraq. And for me as a politician in opposition, I see it as a prime task to constantly scrutinize the government in order to make sure that we're flexible in our humanitarian aid, in our support to organizations working on the ground, in order for them to quickly respond and act without having to wait for additional funding from donors around the world. The biggest receiver being the UN Refugee Agency, obviously a central organization in the current situation, but also a central organization with the aim to support ethnic and religious minority groups to be able to return to their homes in their own country. The aim can never be to empty Iraq on minorities. That's the aim of the terror organization we are fighting. Also, I know that many of you here today are involved in NGOs and more private initiatives in order to support our brothers and sisters who are now escaping from violence and death. And you deserve every support and admiration for taking that action. During the seminar so far, we talked about the support to security units on the ground. And it is clear that initiatives such as the MPU, Peshmerga, alone cannot fight ISIL and protect the ethnic and religious minority. They're in a desperate need of more and a stronger support. The Iraqi government, we cannot leave the Iraqi government out of the discussion. They do have an obligation to support and safeguard its ethnic and religious minority. The Iraqi government needs to cooperate and respect these fundamental rights. And several aspects need, of course, to be taken into account in order to help us to understand why it became this way, the terrible and complex situation we are now facing. The Sunni-Shia clash, the strong influence of Iran today, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and without support to a government that cannot live up to the basic fundamental rights of its population, without support to those fighting, the security units on the ground who are now fighting ISIL, the situation cannot be solved. If you speak concretely on the Swedish action, in December the German Parliament voted in favor of sending military trainers to the region, and just very recently also the Swedish Foreign Minister announced that Sweden would like to assist in this training. We haven't seen any concrete action from the government exactly what this will entail, but what is clear that I'm sure there will be support for this, and we need to extend our support in that field. We've talked about, or you've had as one of your bullet points on your presentation, also safe havens. And that's something that has been heavily debated. Can it help the situation? How can it help the situation? We need to be absolutely sure that a safe haven is safe. We have experiences from the Balkan Wars when we couldn't live up to it. But I know it's an issue that our member of the European Parliament, Lars Adaktusson, is working on there. What's the time?
That's fine.
I think I might leave it there. It's a complex issue. I'm glad we're so many people here today to discuss this issue, but also to show that we need to do something, and together we need to act and reach change. So thank you very much for being here, and I look forward to the discussion.
Yes. Thank you, Sofia. And you mentioned that we do want a lot of actors to get involved, and you specifically mentioned neighboring states and the need for the League of Arab States, for instance, to do something. What would you expect and like to expect from that part of the world in this matter?
Yeah, I'm quite glad that I now yesterday was the big Security Council meeting in Brussels with all the foreign ministers, where finally you also had actually a meeting with the Arab League. Because I think if you want to see change in the region, you can't work in isolation between Europe, between the US and other like-minded, and the minorities in the Middle East. We need to have the countries in the Middle East on board. So I think it's a one step in the right direction, but of course it's complex with all the interests there are in the region, and interest in Iraq that we see with, I mentioned, for example, Iran and Saudi Arabia, which I see as a very threatening aspect.
Would you like to comment on that, Savina, maybe on how do you see the potential progress from neighboring countries to Iraq? Yeah, you can push this.
Yeah. As in on ground, to be honest, from the neighboring country, we have only been somehow very limited humanitarian aid received, and only that in political wise and security wise, from what we have been demanding, I personally have seen nothing.
Tonight, President Barack Obama is going to have his State of the Union speech to the Congress in the United States, and the US has a tradition of being involved in Iraq and has the previous years withdrawn and are now seeing these new challenges after Saddam regime. Do you think, I would like, maybe if any of you and all of you would like to comment on, do you think there's a chance we see a more comprehensive and straightforward approach from the US, and would that be beneficial at this moment, or do you see a threat from that as well?
I go first? Well, I wish I knew, and I wish he would have consulted me before he... in writing his speech. But yeah, I think there will be some very tough words, some really tough words on the fight against terrorism and the fight against ISIL with the recent happenings in Europe, but also, of course, what we've been hearing here today. So no doubt there will be, but I don't think there will be, perhaps some self-criticism, what happened when US withdrew from Iraq and the way we'll let the Iraqi government move on without consultation. Yeah, that's a good word. So, yeah, it will be interesting though. But I'm sure there will be some really strong words to show some commitment and decisiveness.
Yeah, Jacob.
I certainly hope that he will commit himself to do something about this, because 1 year ago at the American National Prayer Breakfast, the President Obama delivered a very good speech on religious freedom and the issue of persecuted minorities and Christians. On the other side, he's been very delayed when it came to the start of the cleansing of Christians from Mosul. He waited, I think he waited a week or 2 weeks to respond. And that was only after the Yazidis was targeted, not when the Christians was targeted.
They were certainly late in their actions. However, they did help a lot in the Yazidi case where they were trapped in the Shingal mountain. When the US troops, they helped a lot. However, as Assyrians and minorities as well from Iraq, we are actually hoping for a strong statement from them, because they already did and promised for a bill that they would be supporting the security unit of the minorities in Iraq. So we are hoping for it, that we're going to hear it again from him in a statement.
The Western world do have a tradition of being involved in the region, but if you look from it, like when you have the results, you realize that we tend to act only one step ahead. Like, for instance, during the Cold War, we wanted to protect us from communism, and that made it possible for these dictatorships to strengthen. We then tried to overthrow dictatorships. We succeeded with Saddam Hussein, and there have been some efforts with al-Assad in Syria, and we see these new threats. Do you guys see potential mistake now as well on doing something wrong? I see now we're trying to support new groups in this region. Do we stand in front of this happening maybe again, and you see new threats rising after this?
One of the mistakes would be if they actually did not get involved and if they did not try to support. And the other mistake would be if they did not go straight forward to the people who are actually targeted. So if they meet with the representatives of the indigenous people, of the Assyrians and the Yazidis who are there, rather than, yeah, of course they should meet other nationalities as well, because we are all in a threat, but also to go forward for the main nationalities that were targeted in the issue.
Would you like to comment as well, Sofia?
Yes, I would like to actually quote Condoleezza Rice in her speech, I think it was year 2000 in Cairo, when she said, when it comes to the policies in the Middle East, we prioritize stability on the expense of democracy, and we achieved neither. And I think that sums up the way we've been acting and the way we looked upon the Middle East. And yes, there are new threats, and I think we also misjudged the whole Sunni-Shia conflict and everything that was boiling under the lid of Saddam Hussein.
We now focus today on the rise of radicalization in the Middle East, but we also with the recent events in Paris and the attacks both against Charlie Hebdo and Jewish kosher shops, and new plans being shown in different parts of the Western world, we see the problems of radicalization actually rising within the Western societies, and this battle of ideas that we see. I know this is not something we will find a solution on maybe on these short minutes, but I would like to hear maybe on, you reflect a bit on how we can deal with this issue also rising in our own societies.
Foster a civil society, a society where we neither take away religion from the public square or impose by force a religious vision or conviction for society. In a pluralistic society, in a lively society, we need to have the free exchange of ideas. And to ban criticism of different religions or ideology would only foster a more tension in the society. There are several empirical studies done to show this, that more regulations, state-side regulations of religion or public debate will only foster more tensions. So we need to foster a society of free expression of ideas, of religious debate and religious discussion.
Do Savina or Sofia would like to add something here? Yeah, Sofia?
I think Jacob is on to something important with finding the balance, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and we need to speak out more clearly about these issues. But we can definitely do more when it comes to criminalize people joining terror organizations. There's initiatives when it comes to confiscating the passports, and there are several things that we need to really to be more tough upon.
Since I'm a Middle Eastern and not a European country citizen, but maybe I'm not at that position to advise what they should do or not. However, I could have a little bit of experience of what's going on, since we have been dealing with these issues since I was born. Maybe if they can take a bit more precaution of dealing with the immigrants that are coming to the Europe countries, and they can try to educate them more about the systems that we are not aware of, such as democracy, that we don't have in our country. We were not educated on it. So it takes step by step, and I think the more they educate them or train them on how the system is going on, what does it mean, then they would have a bit better, or they would open their mind a bit larger to the issue.
Yes, thank you. Now I think it's time for us to leave the floor open for potential questions from the audience. You're all equipped with a microphone on your seats, so but I would prefer for you raise your hand if you have a question for parts of or all of the panel. You can start there. Yeah. Did you push the button? Now it's working.
Me and my colleague are working on founding a Swedish Yazidi Fellowship Association. On fall this year, we will arrange an event involving Yazidi speakers and musicians and much more to raise money for those in need in the region. My question is, are there any organizations both in the region and here in Sweden who we could get in touch with to discuss and maybe cooperate with them?
How can they cooperate with the local? Yeah. As I'm not very well aware of how our Yazidi brothers are dealing with their health issues, but I can use our example, maybe that would help. We have centralized our humanitarian aids, for example, organization in Iraq, the Catholic Church we have, and we have the Syrian Aid Society and the Asiro. We have centralized some humanitarian aids where they have connections in the country and outside the country. As for the political demands and other demands, we have a demand for action group in which we have ambassadors in 19 countries, and we are keeping each other informed and aware and connected. So I would suggest if maybe later you can give me the contact of the Yazidis locally who are working on it, and we're always happy to help with each other, because we already actually are politically are in discussion with them, and they agree on the same demands as well.
The association is not founded yet, but we are in touch with the local Yazidi groups in Norrköping and other cities in Sweden. My question was rather if we are on any other organizations here, not necessarily Yazidi, maybe Assyrians.
Okay.
Who would be interested in?
We have Assyrians Without Borders, and if there are any others, maybe Ashur can give me the names of other Assyrian organizations that are here in Sweden that you can get in contact with. Come back to me later, we will give you the contacts, yeah?
Much appreciated, thank you.
You're always welcome.
Do we have any other questions? Yes?
This question is to Savina. From who does the Assyrian people get their humanitarian aid from?
Locally, as I said, our people all around the world, we tried very hard through many organizations inside Iraq and outside. And we have the churches, all types of churches, whatever ethnicity they are, Catholic, Protestant, or Middle Eastern, all over the world. They have been raising funds and they have been sending it to the churches in Iraq. And we have the humanitarian organizations like Asiro, I mentioned, and Syrian Aid Society. And also on individual level, we have been receiving funds, as in our union, Chaldo-Assyrian Students and Youth Union. We also have been receiving humanitarian aid to help and support.
Yes? Mikrofonknappen.
Ska jag trycka? Ja. Hi Savina. I would like to know about the... You're telling us that the fugitives are living in church and everywhere in parks. My question is, are the mosques open for these people or...
No.
No. Thank you.
Yes. I would leave an opportunity for the panel to give some concluding comments, if you want, to maybe to give us some hope. How can we find a way forward to find this more pluralistic society and to strengthen? I mean, there's also a problem with a weak political institution, and in this region that is a problem. Can we? How do we move forward? I know this will take time, as democracy tend to do, and also ending old conflicts. But would you, all of you, like to have some concluding remarks before we wrap up this seminar for today?
Well, I wish I had the best answer to that question, but I think by initiatives like today, where we get together and discuss this issue, is definitely a step in the right direction. And I'm hoping that this can also spark contacts between different organizations, between us in the Parliament. I'll be more than happy to keep in contact, and please keep us informed on what is going on, because it's not that easy when we're a lot dependent on the media. As we know, this is an issue that recently has become more attractive for journalists to write about, but there's been quietness for too long. So please stay in contact and continue to act. And as we said initially, there'll be none of us saying that we didn't know, and there'll be none of us saying we didn't act. Thanks so much for coming.
I was reminded when you mentioned Condoleezza Rice's quote, we have exchanged democracy for stability, or was it the other way around?
Yeah,
Neither.
We've
Prioritized
stability
on the expense
of democracy.
As Westerners, I think it's a very good idea to look back at our own history when we, for example, compare revolutions, when we compare societies that try to break themselves free from dictators and from totalitarian societies. Just look at the difference between France in the 17th century, 18th century, and the United States in the 18th century. After gaining liberty from the monarchy, the king, the French thought they had gained liberty, but the country deteriorated into anarchy. On the other side of the ocean, Americans found their liberty, found their freedom, but they didn't stop there. They ordered it. They ordered freedom. They ordered liberty through a constitution, and they also sustained it through education, through fostering of new generations. And I think that's a good template to move forward with in societies that needs to foster a pluralistic society, to build up a democracy, not just to gain freedom from dictators, but also to order freedom, order liberty in a constitution where all people are welcome, all people of different faiths are welcome to take part in the public arena, and also sustain it for future generations. Thank you.
As for me, to be honest, even though this is a very tragic what's happening, but this is the first time that I see at least my people, Assyrians, really united and working together onto getting something done for the nation. We are finally standing up, we are finally waking up all over the world, and that's why I really have hope that we will do this and we can do this, because I'm seeing my people getting strong again through unity, and this is my biggest hope. Thank you.
And I would like to say thanks to all of you. I really think it's been a great discussion here today. Thank you for visiting us, Savina, and thank you, Jacob and Sofia, and also for all of you guys showing up and showing interest in this cause. I hope we will have further initiatives in the future as well. So thank you so much and for today.